Alrighty. Hey everyone. Thanks for being here today on this, let's see, this is April 22nd, Moon Day, April 22nd, 2024. And I'm really excited to get into this amazing conversation about this cosmic divine dance that we're continuously participating in, that is the source of all of creation, the cohesion and convergence of the divine masculine and divine feminine, and how these energies come together within us and are coalescing all around us at all times. And so I'm excited to jump into this conversation and also introduce you to a new friend and dear guest, Noa Lakshmi, who I've had the pleasure of getting to know recently and getting to just really understand a little bit about her and where she's come from. And it's certainly not the first time we've encountered each other at a soul level, but physically, this is the first time that we've gotten to see each other. So it's a pleasure to come back together again. And I'm really, really excited to be here on the show today to talk about this amazing topic. So I wanted to start out, Noa, just with a little introduction from you, kind of how you got started into maybe your awakening process and what brought you here today, just briefly, and then we can jump into the topic at hand. So thanks for being here, sister.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the invitation and thank you for creating the space. I am very grateful and delighted to be here. And I love how, on soul level, we've met many times. And then the divine orchestration of Facebook, I call it God's personal assistant, brought us together again. Briefly, okay. The question of when was my awakening is an interesting one for me, because now when I look back, or when I just look at myself when I was a child, I was always awake in a sense, I guess. I didn't know that when I was a little one. But now I recognize that I was born with my eyes wide open, because I questioned pretty much everything under the sun from the moment that I can remember. I was asking questions about like money. I didn't understand the concept of money. Why do I need this piece of paper to, do something? And I was asking my parents about borders, and I didn't understand passports and governments, and just the whole system basically was really weird. And I remember looking around and feeling this sense of something is weird here. And so in one way, shape, or form, that was my experience as a child. And even throughout school, I felt like a fish out of the water completely. I just didn't feel like I belonged there. It felt weird to me, and the whole world just felt like a strange experience altogether. And that's also one of the reasons why, in a sense, I've always been a rebel. And I like to mention this part, actually, that even in the womb, I was already a rebel, because when it was time, when my mom went into labor to deliver the baby, I was laying horizontally, which can be tied into our conversation today, also with horizontal lines and vertical lines. But I was horizontal, meaning, number one, I was like, I'm not getting out of here. And number two, it was like, the rebel that I am. Like, everybody's laying vertically. No, I'm going to be laying horizontally. So the doctor or whoever was delivering me had to literally go in and turn me so they could pull me out. In that sense, that's just the way I'm structured, is quite a rebel. But now I have a deeper understanding that rebellious spirit is more about recognizing what is in alignment with our divine nature and what is not. And so I've been on a quest since I can remember. Just, I didn't know that I was on a quest, and one step led to another. And part of my soul's design and journey also was that was the voice that told me to leave I was born in Israel. And so when I was 20, it was a very clear guidance to leave. You know, when everybody is like, I'm going to go to university and then get married and do the kids and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, I'm out. And I didn't know it was going to lead to the journey I've been on, but it was a very strong guidance to leave. And now, again, in retrospect, I look back and I recognize why that calling came from such a deep knowing, such a strong place. And I've lived my life guided by intuition for the majority of the time, you know, and the leaps of faith. And to me, it was never even a leap of faith. It was always this deeper knowing, like this is what I'm guided to do. And I just didn't have the verbiage for that or the understanding back then. So here I am today, you know, after many years of exploring and then of course diving deep into the whole world of health, which, as we know, it's so much more than just health, and recognizing and discovering what this body is and our natural state and our divine natural way of being, which is what I'm here for, and ultimately freedom, which that's what my name means. Noa, N-O-A, in Hawaiian means to be free. So little bit did my mom know, but this name really represents me fully and completely. So here I am.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. And it is a, you know, it is sort of a hallmark of those of us who are inclined to sort of push the envelope and bring us towards that direction of freedom and highest expression. It is naturally a lonely path in a lot of ways, and by design. But to have that sort of rebel to fight against the masses, because the masses are always going to seek that space of complacency and that space of lethargy or you know, slothfulness. And so to have that inspiration within us to be guided to push that leading edge to bring us into that space is very consistent with those who are walking this straight and narrow path, as Yeshua described. You know, this path that is going to be few and far traveled. If you look around and everyone's going that direction, it's time to reconsider where you're actually going, because if the masses are there, it's usually a space of complacency. It's usually a space of you know, not that we need to be fighting against ease, but usually the space of ease is that space of slothfulness and complacency. So it's very encouraging to hear that you know, you share that same rebellious nature within, and I'm sure it's prompted a whole wide slew of polarizing experiences when dealing with people who want to remain in that state of stagnation. But creation is always inspiring us to grow, always inspiring us to move. And that's what brings us into this topic today, because you have these two seemingly opposite forces always in this interplay, always dancing with each other. Neither of them is like the other, but it is the connection point between that friction that is that divine union, that is the sacred sex, that is what creates all of creation. And they have to be opposite. They have to be, they have to have two different polarities in order to inspire that change. If they were consistent, if they were the same, then the dance between wouldn't yield any sort of new expansion. It wouldn't yield a new experience. And that's truly the antithesis of creation itself, is stagnation. Creation is always prompting us to move and to grow and to expand, not to be still, to find stillness in order to observe the expansion, but ultimately to grow and to learn and to expand. So yeah, it is beautiful. And I'd love to just dive right into the topic today, which is on that sacred masculine, sacred feminine, and the dance between that creates that divine union. So I guess we'll just start with perhaps going over these two seemingly opposite forces in your words, and then I can have a turn of you know, how would you define? We'll start with the feminine. How would you define the divine feminine force, that divine feminine side, that aspect of us within creation? How would you define that in a nutshell?
It's a little bit challenging for me to define things. I feel that even within what you're saying, that creation is ever evolving and ever growing and ever expanding, that I find myself less and less in a place of even definitions, because that keeps on expanding and keeps revealing itself more and more. So I could perhaps share some of the divine feminine principles in which live within us and are part of nature. And at the same time, I don't find these hard facts necessarily, or hard definitions, as something that speaks to me, because I've learned even from my own experience that there's a constant dance, and that even within, this is something that came to me earlier today, is that even in the divine feminine, there's masculine qualities, and within the masculine, there's some feminine qualities. So in a sense, and that's the Pisces world of the yin and yang constantly just kind of blending into each other, in which, how can we even define which is the feminine and which is the masculine? So that's where I'm finding myself today. And in terms of, simplicity and answering your question to the best of my ability, the feminine principle is, I would say, that of spaciousness. And in my own journey and learning of the allowance of the which may seem passive or may seem still or not in action, but there's actually so much action that happens there within that sense of, you can say relaxation, in a sense of just what we call is letting go. And I even do this with my body, because this represents to me such a divine feminine position of just to just allow. And in nature, we can see it in what happens underneath the soil, right? When we plant a seed and seemingly, or we think, well, nothing is happening, but there's so much happening underneath the surface. And so the feminine way of operating is that state of being, what we call even inspiration or intuition, that guides us in the direction of aligned action, which you can say that's more of the masculine. Okay, now I know where I go. Like, this is more of the masculine arrow, and the feminine is the soil to, like, okay, let's just allow things without pushing. Actually, even women giving birth, there's no pushing that needs to be involved. There's just complete openness, complete spaciousness, complete almost emptiness, but then just to from that place to allow the inspiration and the guidance to rise. So that has been a huge piece in Noah's life's puzzle, because I have very strong Mars energy in my chart. We'll dive into that a little bit later, but I've learned to just allow life, allow this flow, and retraining myself and retraining ourselves as a society to really trust that voice. And that's the voice of, if you want to define it, that's the feminine. That's that deep, tender place within that speaks gentleness, that speaks love, that speaks compassion. But at the same time, it can be very fierce. So again, there's no like one definition, but ultimately it's a space of complete allowance and intuition.
That's beautiful. And I think it's so perfect, the struggle of even associating definition with the feminine, is a great way to describe the feminine in and of itself, because the feminine is what seeks constantly to be undefined. It is the constantly pushing beyond what the structure has built in front of us, and pushing those boundaries to new heights, because the feminine side of us is that receptivity. It is that openness, as you said, that surrender, that allowance, to allow the metaphysical in impracticability, you could even consider it that, the expansive nature that from which we come from, which would be, I said in the post that the number 2 represents the feminine, but you could also argue that the 0, the void, also is the feminine, because that's the womb, the immersion point, the portal from which all comes. So that 0 is the 0 point energy, that space that's beyond definition, beyond the senses, beyond perception, from which all creation comes from. And so she's always there, trying to instill this what we might perceive as impossibility from our senses, which the masculine is going to be the more sensory oriented side of us. She's always saying, hey, let those go and come back to the magic, come back to the expansiveness, come back to the openness of what you can be, or we can't even define what we can be, because it's always continually evolving. It's always ever changing. And so that's why she is the motion. She is the movement. She is the magnetism. She is this wave that's constantly flowing. That's why water is associated with her, because she's always flowing and moving in this sort of ever changing, way of being. She fits to the shape that he provides. There is a purpose in having the structure, because just as if we had we were trying to create a painting and we didn't have a canvas to paint on, there's no borders to sort of confine or contain that beautiful creative essence. So that's where the interplay, the dance between these two, he's always trying to create a structure, and she's always trying to break free from that structure. And it's the communication and the workings, the interplay between these two, that allows this expansive project to continue moving in that way. And so, yeah, I just thought it was so fitting that the struggle for definition is right there in the feminine. I mean, that's part of who she is. She's always going to be pushing that boundary. She's always going to be pushing those limits. And that's why it's, from a, if we're looking at the way that this sort of overly inverted masculine oriented society has been crafted, that's why it hates the feminine so very much, because it acts as a barrier breaker to this sort of controlling, confining, slave-based structure that has been imposed upon us. And so, of course, they had to go against her every step of the way, or we did. We fought against this side of ourselves to try and limit the expansiveness and try and regain some semblance of control. But it really is so much greater than that. So, yeah, I thought that was perfect as far as, attempting to define the feminine and just recognizing this ever fluid nature that she brings to us. And, so yeah, like, I think it's beautiful in that sense. Did you have any more comments on that, on what I just said?
Oh, well, everything you said is hitting home and is super brilliant. Like, I feel that, like, the feminine, like, I could go into so many different directions with this. Something that was interesting, though, that kind of popped in my awareness as you were speaking about this structure, and we definitely need both, right? For sure, because water with no structure it's a flood. So, absolutely. And if I wanted to drink this water, then obviously I need a vessel to have the water in. So it's always a beautiful dance and a beautiful blend. And so what came into my awareness, though, is regarding the body, because my approach and what I say is the body in itself is of the feminine nature, like the actual body. And that's part of the whole journey of coming back home and coming home to ourselves and coming home to our bodies and feeling home within the body. Now, with what you said, I'm like, oh, this is interesting, though. If the structure itself is more of the masculine nature, then obviously the body and the way it's constructed is of more of a masculine principle, you would say, because that's what gives structure to the energy that is flowing within us, that is beyond the physical, that you can say is that of the feminine nature. And I'm not saying I have an answer here, that I'm giving anything concrete. Is just something that I'm contemplating now. And again, seeing that interplay and that play of the yin and the yang and the masculine and the feminine constantly dancing together, that there's just a blend, that the body within itself, we can say, well, yeah, the structure is of the masculine principle. It gives form, but then at the same time, it's super malleable. I know that I've experienced in my life a tremendous transformation, even just within the body itself, the way it looks, the structure, the way it moves, just everything. And that there's so many forces that influence the body as the structure, the solid structure as we know it. So what is it really? Is that more of the masculine nature, that of the feminine nature? Or again, going back to, oh no, it's both, and there's that constant dance.
Yeah, it's truly impossible to isolate either side of this spectrum, because everything has the full expression of the cohesion between these two. But it is fun to try. So let's try and isolate the masculine. Let's try and define the masculine for what that brings into this space. And then we can, you'll notice in this conversation, it is quite impossible to describe one without the other. But let's attempt. Let's see what we can do here. So what would you say would be your principles of the divine masculine and how that shows up?
Right. Yeah. Well, the first word that comes to mind when I hear masculine is that of action. Most of the time is of that of the action. And it's also not just action, because action can also be chaotic, but single focused or very direct line of action. The healthy masculine, at least. Which is inspired by Mars. And if I go back to astrology and the archetypes, then Mars is also so much of the guardian and the protector. And this is part of the massive collective healing that is occurring right now, with Chiron being in Aries, and just healing that masculine wound within us all, of veering away from that protector guardian position to more of the attacker and the pusher, and the going with no stop and with no values, or I wouldn't say with no values, but different values than that of the divine nature of who we are. So that, to me, that will be funny how it's easier for me to define the masculine and not so much for the feminine. Interesting. But it will be action and I feel, just like, the protection, presence.
Yeah, it is. I've heard a beautiful way of summarizing these two interplay, is examining the masculine as the head and the feminine as the neck. So she's giving the guidance. She's channeling that direction. She's connected to the whole, the body. She's connected to the earth. So she experiences that connection in order to channel the guidance of where to point. But then he's that driving force to go in that direction. Without the neck, he will continue plowing ahead and beating his head against the wall, going against directions that are stubborn and completely, not connected to that which is around. And if she does not have the head, then she will continue wandering aimlessly and not have a direction or a driving force to push forward in that direction. So both are essential in order to have this. But like you said, this sort of inverted masculine side of us, without that connection point, when we're just driving aimlessly from this sort of separation illusion, as if I'm somehow not connected to this divine creation, that's what allows that sort of sickness to pervade. That's what allows that sort of unhealthy domination, sort of pursuit of egotistical, selfish interest, disregarding all the rest. So it does have to come back into balance with that recognition that there's nothing wrong with having a conscious and direct will. There's nothing wrong with having action that is aligned and pointed. But she has to lead. She has to be the starting point. That divine feminine energy within us has to be the one that initiates that direction, so that I'm my will and my direction, my aim is true. You know, I'm so it always comes back to that. And that's why, again, why everything has been so disregarded in regards to the feminine being in that sort of leadership or guide position. Because when we have that, then the feminine is never going to make any decision that acts out of alignment with that connection, because she is the one that is responsible for all of life here within this creation. So she cares for that life as if it is her child, because it is her child. And so there's no way to ever introduce anything, any action or any will that would cause harm to any aspect of creation, because that care and that cultivation is imbued within every decision. So of course, in a controlling slavery based mindset, you can't have that, because most of the decisions are made that cause widespread and wide scale harm. So it's always coming back into that balance of really consulting with her, which is within all of us. I'm not saying that, you know, we have to have women be the only guiding forces or anything like that. This is all within all of us. That openness, that receptivity to be connecting to all of creation has to be my starting point, my decision maker, before I'm ever taking that sort of left brain approach of bringing that into fruition. You know, so she as the right brain, as the heart, receives that as the radio antenna. She's receiving that signal from the divine, and then bringing that into this space. He transfers, takes that reception, and then brings that into conscious action. And it's that exchange between the two that is what allows all of creation to unfold. That's what is the divine union, which is the dance and the symbiosis between these two. And it's a perfect divine union in that sense. So it's amazing to reflect on it and see and recognize. When we start to see this sort of fundamental pattern, I can much more easily distinguish of when I'm acting outside of that. When am I making decisions that are acting solely from my masculine side of myself? Or when am I acting out of complete disconnect, or not disconnection, but there's danger both sides. You know, where am I ungrounded and not able to bring into action? Where's my head in the clouds, and I'm only operating from that overly feminine side of myself? So it's about bringing the balance of those two, so that I can consciously move every step of the way at whatever I'm doing.
My God, Justin, you said a lot there that I'm like, oh my goodness, it opened up a lot for me. I do want to mention also in regards to what you just said at the end right now, where am I operating from, and is it ungrounded, and is it too overly masculine, too overly feminine? Is that when we speak about these definitions, feminine, masculine, that there's we can say the higher expression of each of the sides of the spectrum. So there's the higher expression of the masculine, the lower expression of the masculine, the higher expression of the feminine, the lower expression of the feminine, or dark and light, however you want to relate to that. And we apply the same thing to astrology, in the sense that each sign, each archetype, it's not like, oh, this is what Capricorn is and this is what Pisces is. It's like, well, there's the higher octave, so to speak, a higher note of that particular archetype. So, and we see it a lot in our society, and even within the like conscious communities, or whatever you want to call them, is that somebody can be like super in their feminine or super in their masculine in a balanced way, in a sense, but it's actually the lower expression of that feminine or that lower expression of that masculine. So it's also important to distinguish not only if I am actually operating from a place of balance of those two, what seems to be two forces, but which expression of the forces is actually coming online or is dominant within me. And it's a crucial piece to our own self-discovery and relinquishing the ego, in a sense, or whatever we identify with, is first being honest with myself, because the feminine can be extremely toxic, or there's aspects to the feminine that can be extremely toxic, just like with the masculine. So I feel that's also an important starting point in terms of practicality. Even how do we apply all of these metaphysical conversations and information that we are exchanging right now to like day to day, is really recognizing, because on my own journey, I had, a lot of self-honesty and realizations of, well, this is a very low level or dark expression of the feminine, and same thing can be said about the masculine. So
Yeah. Do you want to
yeah.
dive into kind of those polarities within each side? Like we've mentioned the masculine being the protector, the sort of that's the sort of high octave of that polarity of the masculine, as being that protector, allowing that safety and that expression of the feminine to come into this space without danger, without threat. That's what the masculine provides. And then to act as that finisher, to act as the completion point from what the feminine brings to him. So I see that as sort of the higher version of the masculine. The lower version would be, that sort of raping, domineering, controlling, trying to subvert, and domination really encapsulates it quite well. That's the inverted masculine. So is there anything else that you want to expand on the masculine sort of ends of those polarities, and then we can move to the feminine on how that sort of looks?
Oh, you brought it to the table quite well there. The domination being a huge piece in that, and I would say the control piece that you also mentioned a little bit ago, and that's something that on my own personal journey within myself that I acknowledge so much, like that sense of control, and not just controlling oneself, but then controlling others, and how it can show up in so many sophisticated ways. And it stems though from, and this is something I encounter, with people and so frequently, is not feeling safe. And it's because we've been perpetuating this for so many generations, the feminine just not being safe. And yes, we know that this is not gender related, that we have both masculine and feminine. So it's not about being a woman or being a man. However, there's something to be said, and I am in a female body, there's something to be said about how unsafe women have been, and therefore the feminine, and even if you just take the earth as a body of a feminine nature, how unsafe it's been or has felt for so many generations, and all the horrendous things that have occurred in our society, and the suppression of women, which is just a symptom that we see on the surface that stems from what we are talking about, the suppression of the feminine, the suppression of that flow, and what can be a threat to the structure that wants to control everything and everyone. Right? So those are all forces, because what we see on the outside it's not like, oh, they're doing this and the world is fucked or whatever. It's just showing what's happening in the collective consciousness. So that's when I bring the mirror to myself and ask myself, well, what is it in me that, even if it's subtle, it's like sometimes it's like the subtlest of the subtlest, what is in me that is still actually perpetuating that dynamic. And that, oh, okay, another layer for me to surrender and let go of, because I'm choosing not to identify with that anymore. And so that, I would say those two are pretty the biggest ones when it comes to the inverted, distorted masculine, is that sense of control and suppression in order for me to get what I want. It's that, like, I'll do whatever I need to do in order to get what I want. That's a very like Aries, low expression of the masculine energy. And the dominance that comes from that, like, I need to make you a slave in whatever shape or form it may take, in order, or dependent on me, which is just another way of making somebody a slave emotionally, in order for me to get what I want. So that's very much an egoic, what we can say, a darker, distorted expression of the masculine.
Yeah, beautifully said. I mean, yeah, that's perfect. And I would say just moving over to the feminine side, the high expression and low expression of that side of us. We've kind of touched on a good bit on the high expression of her representing that openness and that care and cultivation, that connection, knowing that all of which has come from the singularity. So all is connected. So caring for everything around at all times is a part of her high expression. But I would say the inversion to the feminine side would be this this smothering of care, where it's not even care any longer, but it is, you mentioned the control. So there's control in that inverted feminine side as well, of trying to control any aspect from going into a perceived fear or perceived danger. So the high expression of the masculine actually reaches the low expression of the feminine, and they're at odds, because she's trying to prevent that high expression of the masculine from doing what's necessary to create that protection, or even go into those areas where mistakes might be made in order to create that reality that has that safety. She would prefer the inverted feminine side would prefer none of that happen. We stay in the fear. We stay in this sort of smaller state of being, and we don't ever allow anybody to go and do anything or expand in any sort of way. So you see the sort of controlling aspect show itself on both sides, inverted masculine and inverted feminine, just at different scales. She's going to be, we all know and have experienced probably firsthand times where our parents or friends of our parents have been far too, smothering and keeping somebody from actually experiencing or even just making mistakes. And then the child doesn't actually learn what they need to learn. They don't actually go through that process of having that experience. That, yeah, it might hurt to go through that initially, but if they don't have that direct knowledge, it ends up setting them up for failure later on. So I see that as sort of a product of that inverted feminine to want to preserve based off of fear, not allowing that expansion to occur. So she's not allowing herself to feel that flow and reach that highest expansion. And so this plays out in a myriad of ways. But I'd say that's what I see as the hallmark of that inverted feminine in opposition to the higher realm of the feminine. So what would you say to that?
Beautifully said, Justin. It actually, it clicked in a deep level. And I would add to that, and also in regards to what you said, if I were to describe it in a word, that sense of control from the feminine, it will be manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what came up for me immediately. And so, yeah, that's what it is. And there's many ways in which the feminine can manipulate itself, oneself, and then other people. And it's very unconscious. It's like you said, for that person, it seems to be like, I just love you and I want to protect you and I don't want you to get hurt, or I want to prevent you from making mistakes, but actually manipulating that person to adhere to what I want to see or what I want to experience. And yeah, it's very sophisticated, no doubt about it. And it all stems from a deeper sense of fear. And that's like, in the grand scheme of things, on a bigger level, if we were to again go back to the definition of feminine, masculine is freedom, and feminine is like that nurturing that you were talking about, and that flow at the same time. But that's the dynamic. And so the masculine just wants freedom, and the feminine is like, but he's afraid to be suffocated by that feminine force. But then when we come to a healthy state of feminine, then we recognize that love is actually giving somebody the space to be and to grow, and they can be love and freedom at the same time, that it doesn't have to be this suffocating thing. But that's what we've been seeing for so many generations. But there was one more thing I wanted to add with the distorted feminine, in addition to what you said, like that overbearing. It's what I also see is like submission, that can also, on a more practical level for people, it can show up as people pleasing, and the submission being an expression of feeling powerless. So this, like, in a sense, like, yeah, just giving up, like, yeah, I'll be your slave. I'll just be tell me what to do. I'll be your slave. I have no power to feel for myself or make my own sovereign choices. So I also see that as a distorted way of expressing the feminine, is just a complete submission. And then there comes this element of I'll just please people, because
which
that's
is
my
still
way to show love and care or something,
Yeah, which is still, you could still look at that as a form of manipulation.
Correct.
In a sense, because it's not doing what I feel authentically in my heart to do. And I'm going to manipulate the scenario by giving whatever my perceived attacker or domination what they want, so that they will leave me alone and I can just go back into my fear. So it's still stemming from that same place of unhealthy, unwillingness to do what needs to be done, not allowing my inner divine masculine to come out and take care of action and what needs to happen. So I'm coming back into that subservient submission kind of mindset, which is still, like I said, a form of manipulation. So it's just, yeah, it still fits in that same boat. And I love how you said the part of there can be the freedom and love at the same time. And that's why it's not always all one and all the other. It's a sort of a spectrum of flow of both of those. It's the in breath and the out breath. And that's why the sine wave is continually showing up. So you have this spectrum of at times maybe needing to go gung ho in that masculine, like I've got to go out and make mistakes and I'm going to go learn however I need to. And there needs to be a time for that. But yeah, when I fall and scrape my knee and it hurts and I want to come back and experience that care and cultivation, then I come back to that in breath and I really care for my wounds in that sort of sense too. So there's a dance and an interplay within those two forms, and it's not all or nothing at any point in time. It's truly both, and they show up when they need to. And when we're in that flow, when we're truly tapped into the harmony that is this experience, and that's why I loved calling this show and incorporating harmony within it, because it is a song, and a song has different parts to it. It has the ebb and flow. It has the really intense moments. It has the times where it's softer and it plays, and that's the universe, the one song that we're truly tapping into. We are listening to this song and we're allowing it to flow through us so that I can experience, okay, in this moment is the divine calling for a more masculine approach of like really going gung ho at it and really pointing my will in that direction, really bringing things into action? Or is this a time where I'm here to truly just dissolve myself and connect with all that is around me? And how does that change at any given point, given the situation or who I'm encountering? So it really is just it's amazing in that sense. And when we don't fight it and we truly just are in tune with that, then everything flows as it needs to. Every encounter flows as it needs to. Yeah, it's magic. It truly is magic.
So true. And you just said it right there, when we are in tune with it, because that is the intuition guiding us in every moment, which brings me to what I said earlier about presence, about it's not a head thing. It's not about we need to think about what I'm going to say next or what I'm going to do, or there's just the inspiration comes in the moment when it needs to happen. So even if there is like this gung-ho masculine, there's like go, that will come from a place of inspiration as well. It's not like you sitting the night before and like, oh, let me think about it. In the moment, it will be like, boom, like this fire is going to move you. And this is really perfect because just yesterday, I like to make things practical, right? It's like, okay, how do we apply this on a day-to-day basis? And, whatever human experience is happening in the moment. So my dear beloved sister friend of mine, she's in Bali. And as I was rubbing papaya skins on my face, I just, she just came into my awareness. And literally 5 minutes later, she messages me. And it's 3 a.m. in Bali, and I'm like, oh my God, I literally just felt you. So long story short, she's sharing with me this situation that she's in right now. And she's not sleeping and, kind of like feeling stressed a little bit. And she knows all those things, but obviously she felt inspired to contact me. And I was just a voice of reminding her. And I said, let it go. Just stop thinking about it. Stop thinking about it altogether. And how many times for us in life, we get into this place of, I know for me, it's like, what am I going to do? And especially if there's like, oh my God, it seems like I don't like that word deadline, but it seems like I got to make a decision because I got to book a flight or I got to, whatever it is. And we get into this like stress mode and into our heads. I got to think about it 24/7. And that's not the place in which the true pure guidance is going to come from. It's not going to come from the stress. It's not going to come from the mind because, like you said, it's magic. It's from this unseen place, which is very much the feminine, this womb of nothing, that just let it go. Stop thinking about it. Feel into your intuition. What is the next thing I want to do in life that is not even related to whatever I am contemplating right now or perceiving to be like this big deal? But I'm just going to follow my intuition. And if that intuition says, well, just text Justin, then who knows? That answer might come from me following my intuition to just text Justin and whatever it may be. So it was such a perfect scenario because I thought about our conversation coming today. I'm like, oh, this is such a perfect example, because I love what you said, Justin, about letting the feminine lead. That is it's so simple, but it's so potent because it applies to what I'm sharing right now. Let the intuition lead. Let that, what actually feels good. Like, this is what we are training ourselves. Like, actually follow your highest excitement. It's not a cliche. That highest excitement, it's that feminine place, kind of like that playful place inside of us that what makes me feel good right now that I'm truly inspired to do. And that could be as simple as go to the beach or just take a nap or whatever it may be. And it's from that place that the clarity, the masculine action, boom, this is where I'm going, is going to come from effortlessly, with ease, with grace, and with a smile on your face. So I don't know what was the original question, but
No, it's beautifully said. And it reminds me of, Jesus, Yeshua in Matthew chapter 6, saying 5 different variations of take no thought for your life. And this is not for us to not have thought, to demonize thought itself, but to recognize that process that she is to lead. The intuition is what brings us to the thought, not us, like you said, constructing or conniving or finding some ways to make a thought come into fruition. but to truly allow that intuitive nature, that feminine side of me, to bring me to the thought. And then, like you said, having that propel me to action with gusto. So there does have to be adherence, or a sort of just honoring both sides of that. But she leads. She's the one who starts that. I'm not sitting around trying to make something happen, trying to force a situation to play. That's where we get into this, the Buddhist principle of attachment being the root cause of all suffering. So attachment only comes from that masculine thought. It comes from me overworking myself and being so attached to whatever was, or whatever I've constructed, this mental idea that I've built within my mind, and not being just okay with what is, not allowing whatever to happen, which is the feminine. So if I can let go of that attachment and not let him lead, not to demonize the masculine, not to demonize the thought process or anything like that, but just have connection be the starting point, have that intuition be the starting point. And then whatever happens after that is beautiful. And I should go through it with gusto, with full force. But then this has this challenge built into it of, once I've created something, once I've brought that intuition through my will, so the feminine exchanging with the masculine, leading to that divine union, leading to the child, which is how all creation occurs. Once I have the child, once I've created something, that's where the temptation of attachment comes back again. That's where I start to formulate these thoughts and get overly consumed with wanting to preserve that safety, and that inverted feminine comes out of me, where I want to keep that in a safe bubble and not allow anything to happen to it. The inverted masculine wants to come out and force other people to like it, or force it to stay in that particular way. And all of that comes from me growing attached to whatever creation is. So I've said before that, it's not that we have to be extreme in this practice, but to have this sort of energy where if I'm inspired to create a masterpiece, I'm inspired to spend all this time and effort and energy painting this beautiful, extraordinary creation, I should, at the end of it, have that energy to where I could hold a lighter up to it and burn it. I should have that same sort of allowance, not that I need to do that, but to allow that to move into flow however it needs to, so that I'm open to whatever I'm drawn to create next, wherever that intuition is guiding me. So that's where the challenge comes into play, is not fixating on what the creation is, not becoming attached to it, but coming back to that intuition, again, letting her guide us to whatever needs to happen next. And that's why at the beginning, you having a hard time defining her, because she is beyond that definition. She is always going to be pushing us to new heights and new levels if we allow her to. But she can't force us to. She's never going to force us to. By who she is, she's not going to impede upon that. So we have to surrender to it. And that's why surrender is so consistent. That's why it is such a powerful part of this. So yeah, those are just some things that came up there, but I'll pass it back.
Wow, that was just really, really beautiful. And yeah, it's the distorted feminine that is going to force you to do anything. So, we go back to that lower expression. And wow, just everything you shared, Justin, was so on point and so potent and beautiful. And it really brings us back to the notion of trust, because to live in that way, this not being attached, and whatever it may be, it can be a piece of art, it can be a person, who we are, our identity, all those things to not be attached to, and this just creation and life in general, it requires trust again. And it's going back to our feminine nature, and which is the unknown. That's the thing, right? It's why is it so terrifying to let go of whatever it may be, internally, externally, is because I still don't fully trust. There's still some doubt. But it's that fundamental lack of trust. And when that trust, and when we are rooted in that place of trust, then we are able to fully surrender. And we can apply it to many different dynamics in life and many different things and different situations. Trust equals full surrender. And so that's really the journey back home to ourselves, is to cultivate that trust, because we've abandoned ourselves, we've neglected ourselves, and a lot of it is the body, actually. And this is so much of what I teach and share, is like, we gotta restore the trust. And it's different for every person, but for some people it's very severe abandonment that occurred, this sacred vehicle. And so it's going to require some time to gain that trust back, and actually trust in ourselves, when we can actually not just listen to the voice of the intuition, but to trust it enough to lead us. Like you're saying, allowing the feminine to lead, because sometimes it's an unknown territory. It's like, okay, well, I'm listening, I hear the intuition, but it's like, it's freaking me out because it's unknown. But when we fully trust, then there's no, it's like that innocence of a child. Like, oh yeah, of course I'll go. But it's rooted in, that's where the masculine and the feminine comes in. It's not just like careless child or whatever, like a silly choice. It's guided by intuition that is blended with, oh yeah, this like straight arrow. I am moved by God right now. I am moved by a deep place within me. It's completely unknown, and I might seem crazy, but there's that deep knowing, and I feel that that's like the masculine foundation inside. Like, go for it. You got this. Yeah. So it's really beautiful to explore that within oneself, and that constant flow, and ultimately coming back to its trust. It really is just trust, for us to surrender to the unknown, which is life. It's an unknown, and that's really the beauty and the mystery of this human experience, and what makes it in a way kind of like a fragile experience, because of that reality that we live in. That, yeah, I can make a piece of art, but then it can be gone tomorrow. I can pour all of my heart and soul into a relationship or a project or whatever it is, and in the blink of an eye, it can just. And so I would say that's one of the beautiful things about this human experience, and that vast spectrum that we experience within it.
Yeah, I love that. And trust is such a powerful part of it. And that trust can only be done within, like that's where the masculine side of us, and why Jesus said, take no thought for your life. And it's the same as the parable of building your house on solid rock or the sand, because if we're building our house on something external, that's the masculine side of ourselves trying to build, it's through attachment, through this false creation, on something that is impermanent. Whereas the only thing that truly is permanent is change, is the unknown, is that internal side of us. So she's always beckoning us to come back to that space of trust. Like, you're not going to be able to see me. You're not going to be able to define me. You're not going to be able to perceive me, but I got you. I got you. And so he has to surrender to that. And then from there, he can build a beautiful foundation on that solid rock. That's the starting point, but he has to start there. Society teaches us the inverted sense of that, where we're building everything off of the external, and we don't ever go within. We don't ever connect with her. We don't ever connect with that side of us. So whatever we built is going to be flawed. Whatever we built is going to blow away at the first storm, and it does. So coming back to building that foundation on that solid rock, then he goes to action once he has established that trust, once he truly has built that knowing that even though I can't see it, I've surrendered to it, and I'm building my foundation off of that, then that's where that preservation of safety and that building that extravagant kingdom comes from his perspective, to allow us to share that with others. So wherever that safety is not found in the external, I have that safety within me. I have that knowing and that trust within me, so I can distinguish when we're not in alignment with that. And I can then point my will, that masculine side, to help create that, to make sure that happens, so that everyone is experiencing the external projection of this safety that I have within me. But if I'm trying to do that without having that true sense of trust within me, that feeling of safety and that knowing that I am connected to something that is beyond the physical senses, then whatever I do is going to fall apart. It will never get to that space. So it's so simple. It's very challenging, but it is so simple to come back to that fundamental aspect of, I have to start within and then project outwards. We are the projectors of this reality. We're not here to build everything off of the external. It's an inside out, not an outside in job.
Precisely. I mean, it really, truth is simple. Always is. If it's not simple, run for the hills. Like, truth is simple. In my humble perspective, it's simple. It's just like with health, because, I bring everything back to health and the body and the way it operates. And although there's a lot of complexity in the sense of there are many different layers and many different things and angles to look at or look from, and every person is different in their own unique individual expression and life story, but the road to health and vitality and immortality, if you want to get there, it's simple. It really is simple. And even, nature is the model, right? And I look around because I'm just, surrounded by jungle, and there's so much going on all the time. There's so many birds and so many colors and so many trees and just so much, yet it's so simple. Like the harmony, right, in nature is so innate. Although there's so many forces at play all the time, 24/7, seen, unseen, and beyond, it's so simple. It just operates on rhythms and cycles and maintaining harmony just by following this natural flow. So are we different than that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And that's the journey to come back home, right? Is to actually come to that state of harmony. And I have this theory, Justin, that we perceive, right, we have the two hemispheres of the brain. What if, and I'm just saying what if, I don't know, that's also just a symptom or something that occurred at some point during our devolution, but actually the divine design of the brain was never split. I don't know.
It wasn't until we experienced the schism, until we experienced the separation, and there's nothing wrong with having that experience of perceiving ourselves to be separate from the oneness, perceiving ourselves to be incomplete, because it's all the story of there and back again, a hobbit's tale. We're here to lose ourselves in the experience. We're here to lose ourselves in this illusion, so that we can find ourselves once again and experience the exaltation of that experience itself. So yes, ultimately there is no divide, there is no separation. All separation is illusory. However, in order to put the pieces back together again, it helps to have these sort of perspectives around the opposite ends of the spectrum of where we have scattered the pieces, so that I can see where everything fits together, ultimately to culminate back. And that's why Jesus always taught, all these ascended masters taught the middle path, the middle way. There is no separation. There is no distinguishment. It is about finding balance. So knowing the intricacies of it can be helpful as we reconfigure, and so that I can learn what it feels like or how it looks like when I'm missing the mark, when I'm off that balance point. And that's why learning virtues is beautiful. Just as valuable is learning the sins and the opposite extremes. You know, learning where I'm falling off that virtuous path. Where am I falling off the mark? Just the same as this discussion around the highest expression of the feminine and masculine, and then those lower forms as well. So I can see when those aspects are starting to come up within me, and thank them for that. You know, there's a gratitude, not as a separation, not to punish those sides of myself, not to say that I'm trying to eradicate or extricate those portions of me, but to see, what are they here to teach me? What is this side of me here to bringing me to do? And it's all for expansion. It's all for us to have a greater understanding about this experience and what we're doing. So I am going to play all the roles in my dynamic story. I'm going to play the protagonist and the antagonist. I'm going to play the hero and the villain. And I'm going to see what happens because of this interplay and this exchange between, so that when I get back, not that we ever left, but when I perceive to get back to that starting point or get back to that unification, I have this beautiful set of notes and this grand song that's played and this story that resounds through all of creation. And we get to be there, right there in the middle of it, experiencing every bit of it. And yeah, it's just such a poetic expression that truly is meaningless. You know, it doesn't have, oh, lost her for a second. Let's see if she comes back. But I was just saying, it's ultimately, this experience is meaningless. You know, we don't have a defined way that this has to be. Our masculine side, the thought forms of us, are always trying to construct meanings and find reasons why things have to be a certain way. And that feminine side of us is saying that it's whatever. It's just for enjoyment. It's just for us to have fun. It's just for us to dance and to laugh and to sing and to enjoy. And it is really just a continued dance in that kind of way. So I think Noah's back. Did I lose you for a second, Noah?
I'm back.
There you go. Yeah. So I don't know if you heard what I just said, but I was just saying the part of this creation is ultimately meaningless and meaningful at the same time. So we're having this interplay between these two ends. Our masculine side is always trying to find meaning in everything, and there's a beautiful part of that to give us a direction and try and focus on things and analyze things, and that's lovely. And the feminine is like, hey, it's all connected and it's all valid and it's all real, and it's all unreal. It's all meaningful and meaningless at the same time. And that's what creates the vibrancy, the expansiveness of this. So it never gets dull, never gets boring, it never ends. It truly just is. It's magnificent. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
It's oh.
There you go. It's a little delayed, but I think you're coming back in now. Oh, we might have lost her again. That's a shame. The airwaves can't handle this. Oh, are you still there?
Oh.
Yeah, I can hear you. It's
Can you hear me?
It's choppy, but I think you're coming through now. We can try it. Yeah, it's possible.
Can you still hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah, maybe without the camera, it might come through a little better.
Yeah, I'll do it without the camera for a moment, because my Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it's still really choppy though. Unfortunately, we're only getting
has dropped, and it's 111.
Yeah, it's breaking up almost every
So,
word, though,
oh wow.
unfortunately.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll just keep yeah, I don't know if there's yeah, I guess that might be the universe saying, "Hey, we covered what we needed to." I did want to, I guess, while Noah kind of sees if the Wi-Fi will come back and adjust in that, we did want to open up this discussion for anyone that wants to jump in and share anything or ask any questions about.
Well, maybe to.
Yeah, it keeps. I could keep hearing you for a second, and then it keeps fading off. So yeah, just in the meantime, if anyone has any input or wants to share anything, ask any questions, bring any insight to the dialogue, this would be a great time to raise your hand and chime in any which way. This has been an amazing discussion so far, and it's really a topic that we can't talk about enough. It really has just the continued, because it applies to everything. It truly applies to everything. It is everything. This is the really the Trinity. Everything is the Trinity. It's the three in one: the Father, Mother, Child, the family, created the creation point. You know, allowing this dynamic exchange between these two seemingly opposite forces come together and create the third. And that's what God presented to us for how creation formed, and what we're doing in every moment as we allow ourselves to step into the fullest and highest expression as conscious creators. So yeah, is there anyone who would like to jump in and share anything, ask any questions, any which way? You're more than welcome to. Oh, that looks like a lot better.
Yeah. I'm praying for the Wi-Fi gods to cooperate.
There you go. Yeah. So while we've got you in a strong connection, was there something you wanted to add to? I don't know if you heard much of what I just shared, but
I
yeah,
did.
go ahead.
I was able throughout the whole thing. I was able to hear you, and just couldn't really respond or have video on. But ultimately, it's like I see us as divine children, right? This is a playground. This is totally a playground, and it's we each going to have our own play, in a sense, our individual play, but then we are all playing the same game in a sense, and we came here to play together also. And when we can come to that place, because I know it's not from a lot of people, it's not like boom, moving from one place to this is a divine playground, but it does require this transformation and inner alchemy. And as it relates to the feminine and the masculine, and the divine feminine, divine masculine, then I also want to add the divine father and the divine mother, that there's a couple angles to this. Number one is we become a part of the transformation, and part of nurturing that divine child within us is to also be our own divine mother and divine father. And for many of us, it's the mother and father we never had. And that's when we come to learning how to honor ourselves, our needs, our bodies, our soul, and our inner voice, and cultivating that trust. And by becoming our divine mother and divine father, we also help that divine child within to feel safe, to come out and play and express itself fully and completely, and have the freedom to be who you came here to be. So there's that. And then to also recognize and realize what is truly our divine father and our divine mother, truly, like way beyond just the biological parents that we were born into. God bless them. And there's a much broader, larger, deeper reality to who is truly our divine mother and our divine father. But ultimately, because I'm a big proponent of it's all within, then it's an inner job. It's an inner job to nurture that inner child that we are, that lives within us. And that's when that inner child comes out and really wants to play and feels safe enough to do so.
Beautifully said. And it really is, it's such a powerful lesson for all of us, in that non-attachment and letting go is recognizing that while our parents are beautiful beings and they came here to teach us very valuable lessons, they're ultimately not our real father or nor real mother. They're here as a pair of rents. They're here to give us a time and opportunity to engage and to learn in that space. Sometimes we learn through what they share with us, and sometimes we learn through contrast of what not to do based on how they've taught us. And that's for us to determine and distinguish. And we love them all the same. But to come back to that realization that our mother is truly this earth and what has yielded this physical incarnation, as she has birthed us into this space and this experience. And our Father Heaven is that which is beyond the senses, which is kind of looking at it a different way than what we discussed prior. Because it changes, it's not something that's so fluid, and it is fluid, and it's not always so consistent. But just recognizing that Father Heaven and Mother Earth are here, loving us, giving us that perfect way to see and to come back to who we are, and and step into our role as the child, to truly enjoy this space for what it is, truly enjoy this experience for what it brings and what it yields to us. So yeah, it's perfect in that sense. And it looks like, unfortunately, we lost Noa again. So hopefully she gets back in here. There was one, just before I move, I see the frugivores. I want to jump to your question here in just a moment. But before we do, I wanted to share this one, or a couple slides, that might yield some insight, or might be helpful to see, if I can find them. And it's just breaking down the elements into more of a, showing, how they show up, and the sort of symbology behind these elements. And I thought this picture was helpful in that. Oh man, for some reason it's not showing up for me to share. Welcome back, Noa. I was just going to pull up a picture to kind of demonstrate the elemental representation of these two forces and how they show up. So if you can see here, we'll start with this one. So most are familiar with the two triangles representing the sacred masculine and sacred feminine. So you've got the upward oriented triangle representing the sacred masculine. So this is oriented upwards towards Father Heaven, up above, and it is kind of this driving force to signify the will and that sort of side of us. And then you have the sacred feminine in the inverted triangle, and that represents the womb, or that connection point to all of creation. And she's oriented towards the earth, sort of splaying out as that sort of connected force within all of us. And so these two exist simultaneously in this, what some call the Star of David, or the, oh man, I'm drawing a blank on the other name for it. But this is the sacred geometrical shape that shows up consistently throughout creation. And you can break this down further, which I thought was very interesting, into the 4 elements, really 5 elements, because the 5th would be the union of these points coming together. So fire and water, fire signifying the masculine, water signifying the feminine. These two come together to form that same shape. But then you also have the air and the earth elements coming together too. So this union between all of these produces the ether, which is the balance point between these four coming together. So again, there's no real separation between these. It is all together, all one. However, just it's kind of a fun way to distinguish and see the difference between those. So just wanted to touch on that real quickly and see if, Noah, you have any thoughts in that regard on this topic, and I'm sure you do. We're not hearing you.
Now you can hear me.
Yeah, perfect.
It's just like you said, that all the elements coexist and there's really no separation. Like we can say like fire, air, water, earth. Yeah, correct. And it's just an interrelatedness, or just how everything is intertwined.
Absolutely. Oh no, I think
hear me still?
Yeah. Okay, you're back.
No, I just lost my Wi-Fi, I think. Okay. There's the interdependency of one element needs the other in order to come to its fullest expression. We can say like fire would not be fire with no air. And each element just feeds off of the other elements. So there's a constant game there, and a constant play, and a constant dance. And I love weaving, just the cosmic wisdom of what we call astrology into this, because I see astrology is not just, reading your horoscope, but it really is a map to so many things. And if you look at the zodiac, is that there's from one sign to the next, it's always masculine, feminine, what we consider the archetypes of the zodiac to be feminine, masculine. So they start with Aries, which is the spark of the masculine, which, by the way, just to insert this as well, Justin, what you said earlier about the head and the neck, that was just like, whoa, that's amazing, because the head is Aries, the neck is Taurus, and we having a full moon. I mean, the sun is in Taurus now, and the full moon is tomorrow, which, the opposing forces of what we consider to be masculine and feminine when it comes to the sun and the moon being in feminine signs, Scorpio and Taurus. So that play of masculine and feminine within the zodiac, and how one leads to the next, and one would not be the same without the previous one. So Taurus will not be the same without Aries, and Gemini will not be the same without Taurus, and so on and so forth. So, and the other epiphany, I don't know if it's called epiphany, but something that I had in my awareness just before we got on our call today is, and if people are not familiar, I don't want to get too deep into astrology right now. It's not an astrology lesson, but each planet has what is called a home sign. That's where the planet is at home. Just like when you go home, you are at home. You just feel comfortable. You just feel good there. It's your home. And so we apply that to each planet. At the same time, each planet also has a place of exaltation. And the best way to explain exaltation is, okay, you have your home, but then you also have your best friend or another place. It could be like somewhere in nature, or somewhere that you just thrive. When you go there, you feel at your best. It's just energy that gives you so much vitality. It can be a friend's home, or a place in nature, or whatever. You're exalted there. You just feel on round. I was, interesting. Almost, and I'll break it down, but almost every planet is in a feminine sign. So the moon, well, the sun, that's an exception. The moon is exalted in Taurus.
Oh no, I think we're losing you again, unfortunately. And I love getting into this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's cutting in and out a lot for about the last minute and a half.
Yeah.
That and
Oh, that's a shame. Yeah, no, we're not hearing you. It's like very choppy, but we're not even able to understand what you're saying, unfortunately. Yeah. So Noah is very proficient in the astrological realm as well. So I'm sure there will be lots of this discussion in this space around how this shows up and just how it relates to. Yeah, unfortunately, no, we're not hearing you. Maybe that's a little better. I saw you cut your camera off. Maybe that will hold it. That's unfortunate. But yeah, let's go ahead and we can at least pause on that discussion and move to maybe taking some questions and getting some input from others. So I see we've got the Frugivores. Thanks for your patience. Would love to hear from you. What have you got to share?
Hello.
Hi.
My name's Amy. At this time, I choose not to have a phone, and so I shared with my partner, Christopher, hence the Frugivore name. And I'm actually the friend that Noah was talking about in Bali. It's now 3:30 a.m. Hello, Noah.
Hey, love.
And just this conversation has set such a fire within me. There's moments where I'm like, come on, have you guys been a fly on the wall listening to our conversations and my internal processes? Because it's just so on key. And even in just joining this conversation, Noah had I'd come across your post yesterday and I'd said to you, hopefully I can join because obviously it's 2 a.m. in Bali. And the masculine wants to kind of set an alarm and wake up to make sure I can be there. And the feminine is just like, no, trust that if you're meant to be there, you'll be there. And literally at 2:22, something woke me up. And yeah, I turned the phone on, didn't even know the time. And here I am. So just firstly, I want to honor both of you for having these conversations and being so tuned in to what we're all moving through on some level on this planet as a collective. And I don't have a specific question that's front of mind right now, but I just wanted to share a bit of what came up for me in your sharing, because as I say, it's been so prevalent in my day-to-day. And yeah, there were just a number of things that you spoke about, how do these concepts apply to our practical day-to-day? And I've been seeing this playing out in such a big way, particularly the notion of the masculine wanting to control and the feminine, wanting to have the flow and the trust and needing that safety. And it always plays out in the most simple day-to-day examples, the mundane moments, I like to call them. And just yesterday, I wanted to go to something that happened the other day with this feeling unsafe, where I had this, friends or acquaintances more like visit our land. We're in Bali. I hope you can hear me over the jungle sounds. And we also don't have Wi-Fi here, so hopefully this connection is okay. But we had some friends visit our land, and it was this moment of where the male in the relationship brought up a conversation about these, well, what I thought was these topics, you know, just asking like, how are you two moving through the masculine and feminine polarities? And in that moment, my masculine was so excited and just wanted to, you know, go to these topics and share, but the feminine wasn't checking in to tune in to say, is this actually a safe space to go here? Is it feeling aligned? And just proceeding to talk about these things out from the mind, you know, just wanting to go there and feeling so excited to connect. And in the end, I felt so misunderstood. The conversation wasn't flowing. And it was just that example of pushing ahead without that attunement and alignment. And the result was a disaster. And I left feeling, you know, like I'd overshared and just there was no connection. So again, this conversation feels so nourishing to me. And another silly example was just yesterday when we had to go into the city to go and do some admin there. And that's a very unsafe environment for me. I don't feel safe going into those environments, and often it takes a lot for me to ground. And so it was just a simple thing, but I said, can we pack some coconuts to take along with that? And my partner sort of said, you know, we tried to do intermittent fasting and dry fasting. And he said, you know, well, let's not take the coconuts so that by the time we come back midday, we can have our first coconut. And there was a part of me that resisted that. And it was just a simple thing as packing the coconuts so that I could feel safe in going into that environment. And we didn't end up drinking the coconut, so his inclination was accurate. But it's just these small gestures where the feminine just needs to feel safe in order for the masculine to get what he needs, you know. And this has been such a pertinent theme. And I think the challenge, it's like I'm finding it easier to find that balance within myself. And the challenge is to find that, you know, you have to find it within yourself to be able to find it in your relationships. And I'm just seeing this so much that, as you said, Noa, everything is so simple. And that at the end of the day, I'm realizing that all these reactions and triggers that play out in my relationship, it comes back to that notion of the feminine just needing to feel safe and the masculine, you know, needing to feel a sense of being needed, actually, and being appreciated and valued. And yeah, I guess it's been humoring in a way that we can get so sucked into the drama and the kind of trigger reaction and how that dilutes that magical harmony between the masculine and feminine when we don't just recognize that underneath it all is just that simple fear of the feminine feeling unsafe and the masculine not getting what he wants, not feeling appreciated. And yeah, obviously it's not as easy when it's charged emotions. And I mean, we've been together 11 years, so there's a whole history of stories and beliefs and, you know, frames that we hold each other in, but just more and more being pushed to by every simple day-to-day example to drop into that. Actually, where am I just feeling unsafe here that I'm not able to give him what he wants? So, you know, he suggests wanting to, I'm just trying to think of another silly example. Yeah, there was 2 days ago, there was an experience that my partner wanted to do on his own, and it involved him leaving the land to go do something. And it wasn't necessarily something I wanted to do. And so in that moment, I reacted so strongly of like, I was feeling very unsafe and vulnerable in that moment. And so to him, it looked like I was trying to control him and judge him for doing what he wants to do and not allowing that. But all it came down to was, no, it had nothing to do with that. And it can become so confusing because then I end up getting into my masculine, trying to justify how I'm not trying to control and I'm not judging. And you can get so lost in that trail of like that same reaction playing out, and him reflecting back to me like, how are we going through this again? And I'm like, no, but it's not again, because that's not what's really going on for me. And it can become so frustrating. And in the end, it was just like I wasn't feeling safe, and in the way that you delivered what you wanted to do didn't make me feel safe. And it's so tricky in relationships because then the masculine can tend to try to want to tell the masculine within me can tend to try to want to tell my partner like how I think he can do it better the next time. And often the reflection I get back from him is like, don't teach me, don't coach me. If you want to coach, become a coach. And it can become, yeah, that's such a challenge for me personally at this time is, yeah, how to, and I guess I answer my own question in saying it's always just about surrendering and dropping in and allowing and not trying to force and push and force a premature outcome. So, yeah, that's just what I wanted to contribute from, what I took from the conversation and what's been happening in my world too.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And you encapsulated and showed just in such a short amount of time the consistent challenges that we have dealing with these two seemingly opposite forces and the interplay that happens both internally and externally within our relationship. So I love the summation of the feminine just wanting to feel safe and the masculine just wanting to be free, to get what is wanted. And both of those have to be satisfied in order for that divine union, that inner child to come out and to have that creation point actually manifest. So it's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that powerful example, or those several examples. That was amazing. Thank you for that.
It's a pleasure. And you just triggered one more thing I wanted to kind of ask or put out to the community is, finding that safety within oneself. The part that becomes confusing for me is, at what point is it, obviously I recognize I need to feel safe and I need to find that safety within myself. And then there's a level of my partner also providing that safe container for me. And sometimes the lines can be quite blurry for me there, because I want to take radical responsibility. I'll always turn it back to myself to be like, what's my role in this? Where am I projecting something or not taking responsibility? But it's a fine line, because everything is within us, but we also choose to be in these partnerships, where there is a need for the other to create a container. And so that's just something I find challenging at this time is, where to find that balance.
Yeah, it's a constant challenge. I mean, what came to mind when you mentioned that was kind of the beginnings, the genesis of the idea behind America and what that was supposed to be, where the founding fathers were trying to define a loose set of guidelines, parameters, which would be that masculine sense, but ultimately to encourage the freedom for everyone to express and to be as they are, which would be that feminine sense. But within that set of guidelines, it was written to make sure that it's known to be the responsibility of all involved to dissolve a government that does not fit those basic needs, but only do so if all other avenues have been exhausted. So I say that as a sort of model, not saying that experiment worked as it was intended, but those were the intent behind it, was to create something like that. To use that model in all decisions, like we've got to exhaust all other avenues of trying to introduce that cohesion before we go the nuclear route of blowing it all up and starting with something fresh. But sometimes that's the only route that is left. So I'm not saying that within your relationship or how to define that, but just sort of commenting on the general difficulty and finding that sense of building that safety within me, but also recognizing when the external representations of that are not there. So is that an invitation for me to move or to make radical changes? Or is that an invitation for me to make those subtle shifts within my perspective and how I'm viewing things? And I can't answer that for anybody, and nor would I ever dream to, because it is that intuitive guidance in each and every moment of like, where am I being called to move, and where am I allowing fear guide me? Where am I allowing attachment guide me? Or where am I allowing this higher expression guide me as well? And it's very difficult to distinguish at times. And that's what adds to the challenge of this experience, is it gives a, it's never easy, but through the difficulty, through the challenges, where we grow the greatest. So I hope that helps in some way, but those are the thoughts that I would just share on what you just gave.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, it resonates deeply.
Yeah, Noa, did you have anything on that particular topic?
Yeah, just a little bit to add to what you said. And Amy, I'm so happy to see you here. When I saw your name popping, I was like, oh, that's the friend I was talking about. So I would just add to what Justin said regarding it's all inner job, basically. So it's an opportunity to look within and ask, well, I'm not feeling safe outside of this situation of whatever is occurring, whatever the details that I'm seeing. Because the way I view things is that whatever manifests for us, and it's all for us in life, whatever situations and whatever relationships, these are all opportunities for us to see what's going on inside that I might not be seeing, or I'm not seeing fully, or there's some new layers for me to see. And so each person, each relationship, these are characters and people that we summon into our lives to be our helpers to see all these aspects. And so, yeah, it's not about expecting an external person, if it's a partner or a friend, whoever the person is, to provide us something, because that never works. And it puts a lot of pressure, spoken or unspoken, on even energetically, just on the other person. And when we go back to the feminine and the masculine, that's when we go to what Justin described earlier about being suffocated, like the freedom being suffocated because I feel that there's unspoken demands, or sometimes spoken demands or expectations, and expectations is a poison to any relationship. And so it's an opportunity to look within and ask, well, how can I create more safety for myself? There's some needs that of myself that I'm not meeting, or there's some aspects of myself that I'm not fully meeting, that I'm potentially still ignoring. And there's a call that inner child constantly calls for our attention, to cultivate more of that safety, to cultivate more of that love, to cultivate more of that sense of I'm embracing you fully, wholly, and completely. And then other characters are going to show up and show us where there's room for improvements, and it's not bad or wrong. It's just our journey. So that's my take on the whole thing. And just like Justin said, which I agree 100%, it's always an opportunity. Well, yeah, there's the inner reflection. And then also when it comes to a relationship and a particular dynamic, it's not about expectations of the other person, but when we are in a particular container, then to have that mutual understanding of each person's needs, and to see how we can, just be in harmony with those needs of each person. And that's, what Justin also mentioned about the head and the neck, and that's when the throat is, right? Like the center of expression, that first I need to acknowledge my needs, knowing myself, and then be able to express that from a loving place. Not I demand you to provide me something, but this is just what I need in this now moment. And communication is such key in relationships, right? And there's a difference between triggered communication and then clear communication and vulnerable communication that comes from a centered place. So yeah, sometimes it's better, going back to that feminine, like I'm just going to sit here and allow, instead of speaking right away or expressing right away, but let me just sit here and feel, and then I can communicate from a much clearer, centered place that is going to yield much different results.
Oh, thank you, Noa. So much resonance, and it's triggering something else that, I always like to bring these concepts back into the practical, and it reminded me of something that happened the other day. I mean, you said expectations kill everything. And I think sometimes in these moments where we're feeling emotionally unstable, very unsafe, we can tend to expect something from the other. And there was a situation the other day where both of us had been triggered. We were both now in our child wounded spaces. And I was very emotional, as the feminine can tend to be in those moments. The masculine can tend to I'm talking about in physical male now, can tend to feel like he needs to be the stronger one holding the space. And yeah, in that moment of feeling unsafe, I realized I needed to allow the emotion, because I think so often those trigger points where we react and we get pulled into the drama, it's actually subconsciously our way of avoiding really going there and feeling that emotion. And in this particular instance, as you say, there's always new layers. Like, you think you've worked through something, you think you trust and you flow, and then life will, as you say, bring in a character that shows you where you're still carrying that shadow aspect of yourself, where there's still work to do. There's always work to do. And in this moment, I realized also where I would sometimes suppress the emotion, or even from my partner, him being uncomfortable with the emotion in the past, and therefore me not allowing it. But in this moment, I just allowed, and I'm getting better at doing that, because that's where the real release happens. That's where the real healing happens. And I just cried and cried and cried, and I expressed that I was feeling unsafe. And at first, my partner was a bit confused. He said, like, I don't understand. Like, are you really feeling unsafe in this moment? And I said, no, it's my child self that's not feeling safe. And I just felt it. And in allowing myself to feel it, I realized how much I hadn't been allowing myself to actually feel that feeling of unsafety. And it felt terrible. It felt, I didn't know where to go. And in that moment, I was expecting my partner. He sort of distracted himself watching something on his phone. And there was a part of me that judged him for that. Like, can't he just hold the space for me? But that was his coping mechanism in that moment. And I actually just hugged myself. And at one point, he came over and he gave me like a little squeeze. And it was just for a few seconds. And there was a moment where I was like, oh, can't he just hold me for longer? But I just expressed gratitude for that little bit of touch, because it was so comforting and so healing in that moment. But realizing that the real way to move through that was just to go there and to allow myself to feel. And it's still very fresh, that I should probably stop speaking there, because what's happening in the days to follow is something I've never experienced before, where, it's just like I'm starting to feel the unsafety of the world, in allowing myself to feel that unsafety that my child self felt. And it's like holding holding that both of that, and just exactly, I shouldn't go here because it's still fresh, but there's something magical that happens there when we allow ourselves to just feel it all, but like really feel it deeply and express it.
Yeah, beautifully said. And it's I don't know, this conversation is reminding me of the helpful tools that nonviolent communication can really convey and share, of just really conveying clearly what am I feeling and what are my needs based on that experience. But then the tricky part is, once I've conveyed my needs, I can't expect that anyone around me is going to meet those needs. I convey them, and then I allow the feminine side, I allow the movement, the flow, to engage with where whomever can meet those needs and whomever can't. And sometimes when we're in a romantic partnership, depending on the dynamic within it, we place all our needs as if, and expect all of them to be fulfilled by the romantic partner. And sometimes they can, and sometimes they can't. So having a dynamic flow and allowing the needs to be expressed, so that I've done my part in communicating, just as Noah said, the throat, allowing myself to express that clearly, so that I've done my part. I've put my needs out there, but then not allowing the mind to control those needs and what I have expressed, and expecting somebody or each individual in fulfilling and meeting all of those needs. Because then I'll naturally flow to whomever or wherever I need to go, so that those needs can be met, and in whatever way they can, and whomever is in my sphere can navigate with a clear understanding of what those needs are, and whether and make that conscious decision. Can I fulfill these needs, or is this something that doesn't fulfill my needs? So it's just it's a beautiful way of communicating, but also allowing that dynamic flow within relationships of all sorts to unfold in the ways that they need to.
And yes, I so appreciate you saying that, Justin, because what it's bringing for me is the importance of living in a tribe. Because the whole notion of it's just, two people together, or if it's just a nuclear family, and just like you're saying, it kind of falls in a sense on just one person. I mean, yes, when you are in a partnership and you share the same values and there's communication and harmony, and I can express my needs and they're being met, but I totally agree with you. It's one person is not meant to just fill all of our needs. And that's not true. We are that person. We are that one that is designed and meant to fulfill all of our needs. And when that is in place, then those expectations also just fall. And I can speak from experience just in my own journey, not to say that I'm like free from expectations, still in human form, working on it, but we are that one. And when it comes to human relations and dynamics, we are designed to live in a pod, like dolphins. And so if you feel unsafe, if you feel emotional, whatever the experience may be, and hey, my partner is also a human being, and whatever is going on for him or for her, then when we live in a village, then hey, what do you know? You've got like your best friend there, or your sister, or another male figure, because sometimes we need that masculine presence to come and hug us that is different than a woman. And it's not just on the partner. It's not just on that one person, because that's what I see is when we live in a village, when we live in this hive, then all relationships thrive as a result. The personal, like romantic, if you want to call it romantic relationships, actually thrive that much more because there's the whole pod helping and protecting and guiding, and there's just so much more freedom in that space. I mean, that's ultimately also a huge part of the feminine, Justin. That's Cancer. I've got my North Node in Cancer. It's like it's about the community, it's about the family, but not in the way that we've constructed it, that it's just one, the parents and then the kids and everybody's under stress and pressure. Like, of course it wasn't designed to be that way. So yeah, I just felt inclined to share that, and how important it is that we recognize that that's actually a human need. Like, yes, we can have our personal space, and it's important to have that it's not like we're in each other's face all the time. If we are in community, everyone has their sovereign space to be, but there's that collective support that doesn't put so much stress on the couples or the family. Everybody raises the kids, and the parents can be free, and the kids receive such rich experience when we are in a community that obviously we are on the same page and there's synergy and coherent values. So yeah, just wanted to chime in on that one.
Yeah, that's amazing. It is like it's all about knowing thyself, so that I can know what needs I have. And that's, like you said, we're not looking for expecting somebody external to fulfill those if I have not done the work to fulfill those myself, because I'm really the only one I can look to. But through that continued expansion, we get to look to things like astrological study and look at things like human design to find, okay, how am I wired? And of course, learning through experience as well, but how am I wired initially to cooperate and cohabitate in these different areas? Where might I lean on somebody a bit more in this particular area, or where might I have that strength and that foundation to offer that lending hand and support in these moments? So going deeper into that aspect within a tribe setting that's how we create a conscious revolution within all things, is to have that interplay, so that I'm not expecting anyone to fulfill a need that they're just not wired to fulfill. They're not wired to do. They're not wired to operate in that sort of way. And, the masculine, feminine way is great at breaking things down. But as I mentioned, going deeper into things like human design and astrology really gives us a lot more insight into, okay, I'm wired like this, you're wired like that. I'm not going to try and expect you to do something in a space where it's just not comfortable for you. Let's trust the flow and move as we need to in whatever way. So I think that's a exciting topic that I'm sure we'll get a lot more into as we go forward. So again, thanks, Amy, for bringing up these great topics and for just being so vulnerable and sharing just a real dynamic experience that you're having that's so consistent within any external relationship, but especially in romantic partnerships. It's that's where we do the most learning. You know, we can certainly learn a lot on our own, and that's where that foundation initially has to be built. But to really challenge ourselves and go that next level, it is through the dynamics of a partnership or through relationship in general. So I appreciate you offering that value to this space. And yeah, I saw there was, it looks like she might have dropped off. There was another one who raised her hand. Was there anybody else who wanted to jump in and ask anything, share anything, have any revelations you've experienced on the show, or things you want to share about your particular sphere of influence and what's been happening for you? Now would be a great time to go over that.
Hi, it's Lila. I just wanted to say hi, Noah. Nice to meet you. And Amy from the Frigivores. Thank you so much. It was really refreshing and lovely to hear, your real life struggles or challenges, I guess I should say. And I just wanted to say there were a couple of things. One, I just wanted to say, Noah, I'm so much in agreement with you around this. When just to flash back to what you're saying around, there is that one person, and it is you. It really is you. We're always, or many people are constantly externally focused on this partner, meeting the needs or these kinds of things. And the truth is like the one partner is you. And then as you are knowing that, then that can flow through into the community that you set up. And of course, it's not going to just be one romantic partner. That certainly has failed us over the last 40, 50 years. So I really appreciated that, Noah. Thank you for saying it. And I just wanted to say it again. And then the other thing was all the way back to at the beginning of the conversation when you were talking about the structure of the body, this masculine, feminine reality as far as the body itself, the stuff, of the body. And being a rolfer and body worker myself, that's something that I've certainly given a lot of consideration to with the structure. We would usually think of that as being the bones of the body. And I just wanted to point out in my own meanderings with it too, of how, the bones are actually considered soft tissue. If you're into anatomy, the bones, which we think of as these hard structural pieces, are actually soft tissue. They have marrow in them, yes, they have that harder structure and containment, but they also are so much softer than most people think of. And I've tried to wrap my mind around that too, just like within writing poetry, body-based poetry and things like that, where it's like, okay, here's this masculine like structure of the body, the bones, the hard stuff of the body. And then it would seemingly be, oh, here's the feminine, the lymph, the more yin energies of the body, the blood, these types of things. But then here we have in pretty much the hardest structure of the body, the fact that it's actually soft tissue. So even within that, we see this yin and yang that is so interwoven that you can't really parse it out. So anyways, I really appreciate the conversation today, and that's where those things led me.
Lila, thank you so much for sharing, and nice to meet you as well. Is it the same Lila okay, that's what I thought. So yes, wow, you just opened up a huge door And I agree with you 100% about the bones. Same thing with the teeth, actually. The whole notion that it's like this hard rock, this thing is so false. And a couple of things I would like to add to that, that actually what gives the body structure, we think that it's the skeleton system. And again, it's not like we can separate the skeleton system from this and that, but it's actually the fascia. It's actually the fascia, which is this tender inner tissue that runs throughout the body that gives the body structure. And fascia, in my humble perspective and deeper knowing, is so more feminine than anything else. It's so malleable. Like that's how you can actually reprogram the whole body, is through fascia. And yoga is based on that. Actually, yoga is not just like, oh, let's get flexible and open the joints, but it's actually releasing the tension and the acidity that is blocking that fascia from opening up and expanding. So there's a lot to be said about the misconception, also even within anatomy studies, that it's just the skeleton system that gives the body structure. Is that really true? So there's room for such deeper exploration. And in regards to that, and I'm just going to plug in astrology once again. And yeah, Justin, we got to do like something more dedicated to astrology, because that's a contemplation that came to me earlier. The sign of Capricorn is associated with the skeleton system. And Capricorn is, I would say, one of the most misunderstood archetype and sign of the entire zodiac. And it goes back to the inverted masculine. So first of all, Capricorn, which is considered to be a Saturnian sign, it's governed by Saturn, and it seemed to be like the sign that is associated with, you know, like career and even dharma, or doing things out in the world and climbing up the mountains and all those things, which is very true. At the same time, Capricorn is an earth feminine side. It's not masculine at all. And the higher expression of Capricorn, it's climbing up the mountain, it's creating a legacy, but it also has a lot to do with self-mastery, and has a lot to do with like the actual structure of the earth and our society. And so going back to, well, what actually gives structure, and in the right way, because structure can be positive or constructive, or structure can be oppressive and putting somebody in prison, right? And we can say the same thing about the body. The body can be this like prison of the soul, or it can be like the most spectacular structure that gives the soul the wings to fly, right? So I'm so big on the Capricorn conversation. I've got a lot of Capricorn in my chart as well, and understanding on my own journey just how much I was operating from the inverted, distorted Capricorn, and what is the true expression of Capricorn, that is actually a seahorse. Like it's the goat climbing up the mountain, but it starts from the bottom of the ocean. It's a fascinating, like really fascinating archetype. Like all the signs are, but the Capricorn has been so misunderstood and so distorted, and that's why our society has been operating kind of like upside down. It's from that distorted Capricornian, Saturnian place. But Saturn, even Saturn itself, has been very misunderstood. And you know what I started talking about earlier about planets being exalted in certain signs, Saturn is actually exalted in Libra, which it is a masculine air sign, but Libra is ruled by Venus. So even Saturn, in some way, shape, or form, goes back to Venus, goes back to the feminine, because Saturn home sign is Capricorn, and Earth feminine side, and is exalted in a Venus ruled sign. So Saturn, with all of its Saturnian, yes, discipline and structure, but when it's fueled by Venus, by the feminine energies, of the earth and the balance and harmony of Libra, then it's a completely different structure. So thank you, Laila. That just, you just sparked all of that.
Yeah, I love that. Especially the connection of Capricorn and comparing it in a way to the fascia, because it's so true. Many people don't realize that when a person passes and the soul has left the body and you're handling the body, the structure of the body is mostly lost because, we think of it as being in the bones, but it really is in the fascia. And the fascia is holding the specific structure of that person. Say somebody has waited tables their whole life or done hardcore digging or these kinds of things. You can see that in somebody's structural manifestation. And when the soul passes and the body begins to deteriorate, that slowly is lost. It's not the bones that hold that structure. It is indeed the fascia. It's so fascinating. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Well, how fun to nerd out on it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, totally. And as a rolfer, you know it so well, because in rolfing, most of what you work on is the fascia, really, to release that. And it's not a coincidence that the fascia intimately is connected with the lymphatic system. That's one of the reasons why fascia can get so tight and constricted, is because the lymph is not moving. There's too many acids in the body. There's too much waste, and everything is clogged up, and so the fascia gets all hardened as well. So it's a constant, one is opening and then the other is going to open, and just this constant flow, and each system supports the other to open and expand and become more vital and healthier. But yeah, I feel that this is also one of the things that are going to come out more, the truth of the body, and what we are talking about. There's such misconceptions about so many things, but the fascia is, we're going to see that becoming more and more of a common knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. It's already there that there's so many structural integrationalists in many realms that where they're having to pair it with the lymphatic work, and that's been so frustrating to me for probably like 12 years into rolfing. Is that as I became known as a rolfer in my community by my clients, they especially people that were very body focused, like professional athletes and dancers, these types of people, those are the people that are routinely going to seek out rolfing to help their body move the best that it can, etc. And those people would be so fixated on me rolfing them, and I would be like, well, if we can combine, a lymphatic massage once a week within that, the rolfing is going to go so much further. But it's just a further example of how the categories get created in our mind, which are, so masculine, and then we don't stray, outside of them. And it's like, no, I could never just be a rolfer. I always had to integrate it, because I felt like I would go crazy if I was just rolfing people and I wasn't able to come in with like, no, today you really need cranial sacral. Like, we're not going to stick to like, we're doing a hardcore session releasing your quadriceps when you're coming in crying and weepy and fighting a headache. Like, you don't do that kind of work when you're in that kind of state. And we all need to get out of this way of putting things into categories and compartmentalizing things into this space where we really understand the ebb and flow of both of these, and that the work will be so much greater if we can be fluid within that, instead of having our psyche attached to a very specific course, and vice versa the other way. We have other people who only want cranial sacral or only want lymphatic, but they are afraid, quote unquote, of the intensity of the deeper fascial freedom work, you know? So it can go both ways. Yeah, it's fascinating. Thank you.
Mm. Brilliantly said. Brilliantly said. And what Lila just said, shared, goes back to what we were talking about earlier, just in like being present, especially as a therapist. And when you have clients that continue to come to you, yeah, on a regular basis, is, well, am I just going to stick to, you know, the same routine? And to be very present in the moment, like, actually today, this is what we need to do. This is what's going to serve what's in front of us. And but again, yeah, it's a matter of feeling safe and trusting, like, oh wow, it's an unknown territory. I've never had sacral cranial work, or I've never done rolfing, and to really just be able to tune in and to feel within oneself, like, this is what I need, this is what is right for me, and to really just tune into that, yes, that even if it's unknown, the inner guidance is saying, go for it, you know. And that's the practice for us, to be able to tune into that, and have the courage and feel safe enough to take that step, whatever that step is.
Love it. I've loved this conversation, and it's just talking about Lila, you mentioning the bones and their fluidity and their the structure. Noah, you bringing up about the fascial system really representing that, and it prompted this sort of deeper look into creation as a whole, and the sort of paradox that even physical matter, of what we might think as solid, as really being nothing but empty space and waves. You know, this whole notion of particle physics, that particles really make up the basis of everything, is false. But the particles or the physicality is just an expression of the waves. It's an expression of that feminine side coming through and slowing itself down to the semblance of physicality, so that this table feels solid. But in actuality, it is simply just the constant motion and movement of consciousness itself. So anyway, I just thought that was an interesting thing to draw upon, because then it really comes back to that same model of what brings into this creation. It is that feminine fluid motion, and then that manifests the perception of physicality through him. But it's not a foundation built on that masculine. It's truly built on that feminine side. So I just thought that was interesting to throw out there as well. And then I saw Tracy raised your hand. Go ahead, Tracy. Yeah, Tracy, we're not hearing you if you're saying anything. Did you have something you wanted to share, a question?
Oh,
No
hi
worries.
there. Hi
There you
there.
go.
Sorry for my delayed response. Actually, I actually hit the button by accident. I was just sitting here because it is in the middle of the night, so I did miss a bit of the beginning conversation. But hi, beautiful to meet these divine feminines. Oh my gosh, it has been amazing to listen along. It's it's a beautiful conversation you've opened up. So thank you so much. But yeah, I'm really sleepy. I'm not really able to speak that well. So just a quick greeting, and I love you very much, and look forward to learning everything that you are talking about and everything that you have to offer. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. Always good to hear from you. And you are hardcore getting up in Hong Kong at this time. But she does that. So thanks for being here with us. We really appreciate it. So yeah, is there anybody else who would like to jump in, ask anything, take us any which direction, speak on whatever we have discussed, or bring in a new aspect to this? Because it really is all encompassing. There's no realm that we can discuss that will not fit within the discussion of the sacred dance between the masculine, feminine, and the child that emerges from which. And if not, that is totally okay as well. Noah, did you have anything in particular else you wanted to cover? I know you got cut off during the astrological kind of deep dive. Do you want to go back to that, or do you want to save it for another show, another topic?
Yeah, I feel let's do another one that is more dedicated to that, and I can go back to all the details. And I saw that you start sharing your screen too, and I was like, oh, this is brilliant. And then the Wi-Fi gods were messing with us. But yeah, just to summarize that whole concept, or what I was sharing, is it's not a coincidence that all those planets are ruled by feminine, or not ruled by exalted, in these feminine spaces. So it also goes back to what you said earlier, Justin, that I appreciate so much. You let the feminine lead. You'll be exalted if you do so. Basically, it's you're going to reach your exaltation. And again, going back, this is like your own self. I'm going to reach my own exaltation when I let the feminine within me lead. But the work, or the play, the inner alchemy to get there, is to cultivate that self-trust, which is again, that you be your father and your mother, you be that divine child, and that divine child will come out and play and will take you to that place of exaltation. So yeah, and I feel like the whole astrology thing, we can definitely just have another segment on that, and yeah, we can open a whole nother closet with that one.
Yeah, there's so much to get into, and yeah, just to let everybody know, Noah and I have been talking a lot about various topics and conversations to get into. So so definitely look forward to a lot more in this regard, going whichever direction she leads us. And it is truly just exciting to jump in. So yeah, I appreciate everyone for jumping on today. I'll give one last opportunity if anyone wants to jump in, ask anything before we close out today. Just wanted to see and check in. And it seems like that is a good sign that we covered all that we needed to today. So again, Noah, I just want to appreciate you coming on and sharing all that you have and jumping into this headfirst. And yeah, I look forward to continuing this conversation. I think we're going to try and keep this same time slot moving forward, at least for the next few weeks. And just see what topics kind of come up to the surface. And of course, everything is connected. You guys mentioned this whole compartmentalized approach that society likes to put us into, which is where you have these supposed experts that are teaching about whatever field, and there's no connection between the rest of everything. So we lose our holistic sense, we lose our wisdom and how it weaves everything together. So that's coming back into this feminine space. So everything that we talk about will be connected because it's all connected. So, yeah, just looking forward to more in that. So, I'll pass it over to you, Noah, for any closing comments, and then we'll wrap up.
Oh, you just said it right there at the end. It's all connected. Yeah. This is my approach to everything. And especially when you're in the healing field, which we all are to some degree, know thyself and heal thyself, then it's absolutely impossible to not see everything as connected. Right? It becomes so apparent. And again, looking at nature, just even things that we cannot see, but it's all connected. Like those little ants crawling, they're connected to something so much bigger than what we can even comprehend. And the root systems of all the trees and all how they're connected underground, things that we are unable to see, and how some butterflies in China affect the bears in Siberia. And it really is the revolution of our times. And what so many of us came here to do is to reconnect that which has been disconnected. And it begins with, again, that self, what in me has been disconnected, fragmented, and reclaiming that back and bringing that back into its wholeness. And we shall see that manifestation in front of us just unfolding naturally. in the world, and Mother Earth itself is calling for that. She is calling her children home.
Beautiful, beautifully said. And yeah, I wanted to ask. So Noa does a lot of beautiful work in the physical health space, the holistic health space, the astrological deeper knowings within oneself. So if people do want to get in touch with you, what is the best way to get in contact with you moving forward?
Yeah, for sure. You can always send me a message here on Telegram. I believe, Justin, you posted my website, so you can always look there and send me an email. But if we are connected here on Telegram, then you're welcome to send me a message.
Yeah, and just for anyone listening, the tag for Noa is Noa Gaia Lakshmi. So that's NoaGaiaLakshmi. So if you do @ and then that followed by that, you'll be able to find her and send her a message.
Yeah, and the same name on Facebook there as well. Instagram is, I believe, Instagram is just Noa Lakshmi. But yeah, those are the places to find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, sister. It's been an absolute pleasure. Looking forward to so much more. And yeah, I hope everyone has an absolutely beautiful day wherever you are. And until next time, bye, guys.
Thank you so much.